and we are running up against Storm this time. It's our opening hand. I think we can run with this. So we get a turn 1 Vial into a Hierarch, which isn't bad. Opponent plays Spybluff Canal and Serum Visions. Draw Thalia, which is nice given the nature of our opponent, but our opponent has a Barrel, Chief of Compliance, which evens out that particular stipulation. So we're going to be able to play Hierarch here and then Reflector Mage, bouncing the Barrel, which is pretty nice. Going to get to hit for 4 as well. Let's take up the Vial for 3, which means we can put Vial into play. Vial into play a Reflector Mage and bounce an Electromancer or a Barrel at instant speed, which could come in handy. I'll put a Bugler here and see what we can get. We managed to find a Freebooter, though unfortunately we can't cast that currently. Unsubstantiates our Thalia. Drops Barrel into play. When plays Pyretic Ritual, we're going to bounce the Barrel here, hoping that will help resolve things. When plays Pieces of Puzzle, getting a couple more cantrips into hand. I get some Freeboot again. See if we can see what our 5 cards were. So our opponent has Barrel, Electromancer, Sleight of Hand, Opt, Remand currently, which isn't the most exciting hand for them. But yeah, fortunately it looks like we managed to prevent them from going off. So I'm going to use Meddling Mage to name Grape Shot here. I actually think in hindsight that probably wasn't the best idea. But, well, you'll get to see why, I think. So opponent plays Barrel and Electromancer. We draw into Thalia, finding the Meddling Mage. Decide to cast Thalia instead of Meddling Mage, which, again, turns out to be an error. We attack, opponent blocks, it goes down to 1. Pieces of the Puzzle, finds Gifts Ungiven, and Pyretic Ritual. So I'll let this go on, but it doesn't end well. So yeah, basically our opponent's able to get to Past in Flames. They Past in Flames, they can unsubstantiate, bounce the Meddling Mage, and then Grape Shot us to death. So we should have really seen around it. I think in hindsight we probably should have named something different with our Meddling Mage. Probably Manamorphose. I think is probably the card we should have named, because that's kind of the card that allows them to get up to these high Storm numbers. I think that would have worked out a lot better for us. As it is, we end up dying to Grape Shot after our opponent unsubstantiates the Meddling Mage. Or maybe we should just played 2 Meddling Mages naming Grape Shot. I don't know which would have been the better play, but unfortunately just naming Grape Shot was not good enough. And also Thalia was kind of redundant in this situation, because they're still getting a 1 mana discount, which is all it turned out they needed. So I think we had all the tools to win this game, but I unfortunately didn't use them in a way that allowed me to win. So regrettably, we do end up losing this game, despite having a pretty good draw for Storm game 1, with all these Meddling Mages and Thalias that ended up turning up. So yeah, fairly regrettable. But yeah, I suppose it just goes to show against combo decks, it's not always the right thing to just name the end result combo card, because as good as that potentially can be, it's sometimes not good enough. And I think if we'd named Manamorphose in this situation, we might have ended up in a much better state, or potentially Past in Flames, I guess, but never entirely know exactly where they're going to be going. with these things. It looks like they've got the main deck Empty the Warrens in some number as well, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, that would have been interesting. We could have done a lot better, I think, ultimately. And unfortunately, we do die to Grapeshot. So let's go on to the sideboard. Okay, so here we are with sideboards. As it stands, our deck is actually pretty well geared up against Storm. My particular list runs 4 Thalias anyway, so that's good. We've got the Meddling Mages, which, if used correctly, can be very effective. Reflect Mage is alright as a way of just bouncing their 2-mana cost reducers, potentially. Sin Collector, I suppose that probably wants to come in as a way of just reducing the number of spells they have in hand. And then Damping Sphere as well, of course. I always forget the second bit of Damping Sphere, but yeah, this taxes them again. Spells cost more for every spell you've already cast. So those are the cards you really want to be bringing in, I guess. Some number of Sin Collectors and definitely the Damping Spheres. But as I say, the deck is already pretty well geared against it. I suppose we probably want to be cutting... You can probably just afford to cut the Bugler or the Mantis. Well, actually, Bugler's fairly good at finding your pieces, so maybe keep in the Bugler. Maybe just cut Mantis Rider, because I don't think it's going to matter so much. Obviously, being fast is still important, but I think the main way we're going to win is just by disrupting them. So that's good. And then... yeah, we probably also want to bring in Dismember. Again, it's sort of a way of answering their 2-mana cost reducers. Probably better than Reflector Mage as well, so we could probably trade some of those out. But if you can get an early Reflector Mage and then don't play the cost reducer on the turn they're comboing off, it can be pretty good as well. But yeah, Dismember seems better generally, so we probably want to bring that in. But yeah, otherwise... I think our deck is pretty well set up, and then the sideboard cards just sort of help us along the way with a few more tools. Okay, so here we are with game 2. It sounds like insane, but it does have turn 2 Meddling Mage, which is nice. And into a Thalia's Lieutenant, which can help pump us through. So we'll be attacking for a good amount by like turn 3 or 4. I mean, yeah, I get turn 3. So I'm going to name Monomorphose with Meddling Mage. Learned my lesson. Draw into Thalia, which is really nice. Bolts the Meddling Mage. Get Thalia's Lieutenant come down. Bolt hits Thalia this time around, which is unfortunate. We are going to crack a Canopy, and we're going to use this Phantasmal Image to copy Lieutenant. So we're going to be able to attack for 6 here. Pumpler's Barrel. We can draw another Thalia's Lieutenant, and that is enough for winning the game. So yeah, our opponent had a lot of reactive spells, and which left them with not enough to actually storm off with Barrel when they cast it. And yeah, our hand was just too aggressive for them to beat, fortunately. So nice, quick, and speedy win. And yeah, their interaction with us was not worthwhile ultimately. So here we have game 3. Yeah, I like this hand against Storm. I never really like to see 4 lands in our opening hand, but we've got Champion into Thalia or Freebooter, which is pretty nice. We've got our disruptive threats, which is the ones that we want to be finding here. So we draw into Hierarch, so we're just going to play that instead. And then we can set up a turn next turn where we play Champion and Thalia, or Champion and Kitesail Freebooter. Open opts. You play champion. Play Thalia. This is another irritating thing on MTGO, which I also just don't understand. If you tap your land for Cavern, you have to then manually put in your mana when you try and cast a spell. I always tap my lands first and then hit the spell. I don't know if it works better the other way around, but it's just the way I've learnt to play the game, so it's kind of irritating. And puts a lot more time on my clock that I definitely don't need. So our opponent's going to Desperate Ritual here with Thalia in play. Another Desperate Ritual, and then, okay, we're going to get a mini Grape Shot, which kills off champion and Thalia. So that's interesting. I think we're in a good position to recover from this, given that we have a freebooter, which means we're going to be able to steal one of the last cards in his hand. Oh, his or her hand, sorry. So we find Gifts, which I assume is why our opponent was a little bit more confident about making their play. So our opponent's down to one card, which is a land. And we're going to be able to play Meddling Mage as well. I'm going to name Gifts here, rather than Grape Shot or what have you, because I think that's probably the most devastating card that he can play at this point. Opponent needs to restock, and I think that's the card that does that best for them in this situation. I suppose we also saw pieces of the puzzle, but I feel fairly good about that. Opponent plays the land, one card in hand that isn't worth playing apparently. We have to sack the 3 here. So really we're just looking to find more threats here. Draw Sin Collector, which is one of the cards we discussed earlier. Go see what our opponent's working with. Turns out it's just a land. So that's good for us, and we've also increased our clock. We've got another Meddling Mage here, which is pretty nice. So we're going to set for 5, put opponent down to 9. Meddling Mage, going to name Grape Shot this time, around for extra protection. But maybe we should have named Manamorphose again. So our opponent has Thing in the Ice, which is quite interesting. Draw another Sin Collector. Just going to attack into Thing in the Ice here, given that our opponent has no cards in hand. They're going to go down to 4. I'm going to cast this Sin Collector, even though it doesn't do anything necessarily, because ultimately the worst thing that's going to happen to it is it's going to get bounced, and then we get to reuse it. So I think that's fine. And yeah, our opponent concedes thereafter. There isn't really a single card that is going to be able to get them out of this situation. They can't storm off into Grape Shot because we have prevented it. Gifts and Given is also a dead card for them as well, if they find a way to kill this freebooter or draw one. So yeah, we managed to lock them down and pick up the win. As I say, I think this matchup seems pretty good. I mean, there's always the chance with Storm that they find a tricky way to win, like in game 1, but I think Meddling Mage plus Thalia is a fairly good combo against these decks. And then post sideboard, we've got some nice cards in terms of Damping Sphere and Sin Collector and Dismembers, which can come in and help shore up this matchup if it needs shoring up at all. Oh, and Freebooter as well, not to mention. So yeah, nearly all the disruptive cards in our deck are sort of well positioned against Storm. So this matchup seems pretty good all round.